YouTube, Star Spangled Clothing here this morning. We're going to work on day 3 of the wood exterior door project. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I had to do what I do, what I'm going to do, and what exactly it was we're working with. This is going to be an example of working with existing. I'll start over here. This is the install that I wished this door looked like. Like, here is this part where you'd install the door. This is the hole going in, essentially. And this would be wood trim that somebody's put up around it, and then they would come in there with their wood J or their metal J channel right there, and then put on the siding, right? So all their nails would be out here. This is what we actually have. We have, here's the door opening, and we have siding and J channel going all the way up to the door opening, no trim. And here's why that is a problem right over here. So here's the frame of the door. Here would be the trim. I'm not 100% sure we have trim. We might. I mean, it depends. People do some crazy stuff. And here's the J channel. So in there is going to be a bunch of nails hitting the trim and the frame from where they nailed on this and the new siding, the new J channel, the new siding. So just shy of, you know, spending a couple days redoing their siding work and making it right, because you'd have to do the whole door, not just that one side, adding new trim, etc. And you'd have to buy a new J channel because it wouldn't be long enough on the top to go around, so or the sides. It just is a huge mess, and you run into this a lot when you're doing work for other people. And if you were doing a project for yourself, you might run into something stupid like this. But essentially, this is how a door is typically installed. Actually, door installation, like I said, is fit for its own video. But see, this is the door opening. This singular line going right along here represents the door frame. This space in between here represents an air gap. I guess I should have used a different color, maybe. And then out here is a stud. So we have an air gap all the way around the door, in which you can kind of shim the frame in or out or whatever, so that way you can make it square, even if your original wood structure for frame is not, right? So ideally what a person would do would be take off the siding, take off the trim, and adjust this part right here. Adjust that air gap so that way that's square with that door. With the siding the way it is and the structure the way it is, just shy of using several days and having to try to find new materials. I mean, I don't know that they even make siding like that anymore. It's a, I assume it's aluminum, but I don't know. But it's made to look like kind of a sculpted wood thing. So just shy of doing that, what I have come up with and what we're going to be doing on this project, it's not new to me, it's not ideal. Almost everything I do, you'll find in future videos, I try to do things if I have to do them the wrong way. And, you know, in this case, I don't have to, but for the sake of time in the rental business, it's very important. That's what I do. I do stuff that you can notice, but is not noticeable. I.e., like if you were to walk around that corner, it would look right. But if you were to spend more time looking at it, you would understand that something's not right. But structurally, it is okay. Functionally, it's okay. It will provide years and years of service. Anytime I do something, I'm always looking out to the 20 or 40 year mark for the quality of work that I do. I don't want to have to come back and fix anything. So I don't do bad quality work, although I might do unorthodox work from time to time. But as demonstrated here, I'm only doing unorthodox work because I'm dealing with somebody else's horrible work. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to build a wedge that's going to go from about where the gap starts getting off all the way down to the bottom where it has its most part. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over to the table saw. Unlike most times, I have a 10-inch blade on today. That little extra blade surface will help me keep straight. And I'm going to freehand this piece of stud here into about 3 or 4 little slivers there that I'll then glue together and sand down and glue onto the door frame. Which means that when somebody else goes to replace it, they'll have to replace the door frame also. But by the time that happens, I probably won't be the owner of the property anymore, and so I definitely won't care. And whoever gets it, I mean, by that time the door will probably need to be replaced again. And uh, the likelihood of somebody rebuilding that door or the frame or really anything is about, it's not very good. It's not good at all. People just don't do that. But the frame would be easy to replace if they wanted to, but that's probably not what's going to happen. So a person might say they're pushing off work a little bit, but it's right for me. So ideally what a person would do here is they would have a sled that they would operate on a table saw here and kind of be able to put a couple wood dogs in there and thereby hold it straight and kind of shave off that edge, right? But I don't have one of those, and for the purpose of this video I don't need one, so I'm going to show you how I've always done it, although I've never had to do anything quite so important, I guess, as this, something that you're going to see quite so well. So normally I would take a chalk line and I would measure out here my 1/2 inch, which is about what I need down at the bottom, and I would just snap a line up to nothing, and then I would just kind of freehand that on the saw, and then the next one can actually be straight and it'll be 1/2 inch short on that side, and you know, etc. Go on down through there, then glue all the pieces together, and there you have it. My chalk box is at a different job site, so I'm going to draw this with a pencil and a straight edge. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this rounded edge here. Like I say, we're getting some real whistle noise there. This rounded edge right here. The thing to remember here when you're freehanding this is that you actually need to push it through there straight. It's just that you want the board to be sitting on there crooked. So this is probably going to take some practice if you try to do this yourself. I have quite a bit of practice, so we'll see how this goes.
Alright YouTube, so we're getting started here with the cut. You'll notice that I spend a lot of time trying to get this initial part straight. It's going to take a few stabs to get that thing going straight on the table. Because like I say, you really need to push the board through there straight. Even though you're cutting a sliver off the board, you're actually cutting a sliver based on a straight line. So it's kind of difficult to do, and getting it lined up is definitely the most important thing. You'll also notice that my fingers are right next to the blade. If you're uncomfortable with that, you definitely shouldn't do it, because you will slip up and have a problem. Another thing that a person should note is that with that 10-inch blade, you have a lot of leverage on it, and if in fact you try to pry over on it like you're getting at the wrong angle, you're definitely going to bend the blade.
Alright, so we got everything cut. I'm pretty pleased with the way everything turned out. One thing that you'll want to do whenever you make little wedges like this, and maybe you won't, but one thing that you want to do is be sure to examine the pieces. You want all the flat pieces to be on the same side. I don't know that I can explain to you why this matters, because I don't fully understand it myself. But I do know that if you put this piece, say flipped over like this, where the angle piece is down and the other one is up, you will not have a good time putting that in. So you want them to all be going the same direction, all have the angles going the same direction. That's the easiest and best way to do it. I can tell just by looking at it, and if ever you cut any, you'll be able to tell also. The side that is cut at an angle is very obvious, and the other side is straight. I mean, you can just see straight. So I'm going to go ahead and get this glued together, and I'll take it in this afternoon, rip it to width, and put it on the door just as we discussed. And this should finish up the project, aside from the threshold, which I might build a little later. Okay, so we have our shim glued up. That's going to sit there and dry probably for the next a couple hours or so anyway. Yeah, probably. And we're going to move on and make the threshold. Now I'm going to do a video later about exterior wood structure design, which will cover this in a little bit. I don't know, a little bit more detail, I guess you might say. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of 1.5" stock, and I'm going to make it angled on the front, and that's going to allow for water wicking, and I'm just going to put a couple shim boards behind it, or underneath it rather, to go ahead and make sure that it holds. And then when the door closes, I'll have a little sweep on it, and it'll just kind of touch in there. That's an extreme angle. It's only about 15 degrees. But that's what we're going to do. I'm really not going to film that. It's just I'm tired. I'm tired of filming it, man. I need to get some work done. But I have this stock here that I'm going to use. This is a remnant from a wood window rebuild. And then I have that piece down there that I'm probably going to go ahead and build the shims out of. These are all treated, or everything I'm using is treated wood. I usually do. People say it's hard to paint. I'm going to cover that in probably when I cover finishes, because it actually paints really well. You can either even take really green lumber that hasn't dried for any time at all, and that stuff will paint right up. The key is using an elastometric primer and paint, and I'm going to cover that in finishes. It's something that I don't think anyone knows about. Really needs to. I mean, it'll save you a lot of headaches. Anyway, I'm going to get going on this, and I'll probably take a video of the finished product. Okay, so I went ahead and made a few cuts on the threshold here, and I'm pretty okay with the way it turned out. It's going to need a little bit more work once it gets there. But here's what I've made. Again, it's cut at an angle. This part right here is actually pretty flat, or it will be once it gets installed. Having a little trouble, my boards are just a little bit warped. This part here is actually going to be pretty flat, which is going to allow the door to have a simple sweep style weather seal on it, and it'll just kind of sweep up there and be sealed off. So nothing too complicated there, definitely nothing orthodox. You usually don't cut anything flat on there. It's actually if you want to do something like that, it's usually an extra piece of trim. But for the purpose of this video, this door, that's going to work for me. And I am going to, when I get ready to install it, because these are going to have to be adjusted just a little bit because the door doesn't fit the hole, and I don't remember exactly what it is. But it's going to slide. This is going to be removable, so the hot water tank is easier to get out. So I'm going to have a couple extra little metal brackets that kind of fit behind the door back here that allows a person to secure it in place. So the door frame will sit right about here, you know, and then it'll be able to slide into that air gap that I drew over there that isn't there. Be able to slide one direction or the other in order to kind of wiggle this thing out and be able to get the hot water tank out with ease. Alright YouTube, so we're back over at the project house. I finished my little sliver of wood. Here's the opening, and here's my sliver of wood that I built. Nothing too amazing, pretty self-explanatory. And it's just going to go in there like that and kind of even out that gap throughout the whole piece. I'm not going to get to finish this project. This is a new tenant that I have, and I told him when he first moved in that he was going to have to get the power turned on. He says, oh yeah, I'm going to get that dealt with, you know. Well, anyway, that was, I don't even know what day that was. That was last week on like Wednesday or something. Well, he didn't get it taken care of, and the power got shut off, and he told me that he would definitely have it on today, being as how we're going to have freezing weather tomorrow and all, I suppose. Anyway, well, it's not on, so I can't drill any holes and finish the doorknob install. What you'd normally do is take the existing striker plate where its hole is and just install the doorknob there. That's what I was going to do. So much for that. Anyway, I'm for the purpose of this video, I'm going to call it done. We installed the threshold. Sits in there flat, drips off. There's my shim. God, this lighting's horrible. There's my shim. Actually, this is a worse install than I thought it was, because they didn't even have enough doorstop to get all the way to the bottom. So that thing there really needs fixed. It'll actually seal out the air anyway. I mean, it's not a problem, but it sure as heck is ugly. Put up my door seal. There's my standard sweep that I just said, just a simple sweep. And the door shuts and seals all the way around. And well, the gap is much better. It's still off a little bit. Alright, YouTube, Star Spangled Clothing here. It's about Tuesday, about 5:30 in the morning, and as much as I like to watch sci-fi movies at ridiculous times of day, I've actually been up since about 1 doing it. I figure it's about time to get to work, so I'm going to do a quick review of the door project. I've been told that I need to have more fun with these videos and just kind of admit my mistakes, talk about them, throw them out there for people to kind of learn from. So I will go ahead and do that. The door turned out magnificently. Wouldn't hardly change a thing, other than maybe I'd paint it before I hang it, but had to hurry up and get it done. The door sealed really well. One thing that I would do differently, and that you should largely consider doing if you intend to use any of these techniques for anything, is build everything on site. The one thing that I would change is the components that I built for the door frame, including the threshold. I would build those on site usually, and they would turn out a little bit better. My shim was a little bit too short, the door stop was a little bit too short. Both are my fault in the sense that I should have perhaps noted that, taken a little bit more time and looked at it. But usually when I'm doing something, I'm building on site, and so it's not near as difficult to account for every little thing that could go wrong. As noted earlier, the project was a sort of a refab, a repair, a patch to an existing structure. And whenever you're doing that, you're going to be messing with other people's work. And so you have issues like the siding that I encountered, and then also the fact that that door was probably not originally installed there, just based on the fact that the door stop was cut the wrong direction and was cut too short even to fit the original threshold. That looks like it was there. I don't know, right? I wish I could have got a before picture. Before the hot water tank was leaning against the door, the bottom panel was completely gone. The bottom rail had fell off. And so you can kind of see the hot water tank hanging out in there, and the original install called for about a 4-inch piece of rubber that was supposed to sweep that concrete threshold, the original threshold there. So it's exponentially better than it was. And if I were selling the house, by the time I fixed the few things that are wrong with it, I wouldn't be ashamed to show somebody that work. That work is fairly good, but judge for yourself, decide for yourself. The purpose of these videos is to not prove how good I am, it's to teach technique and really to teach possibilities. And that's what I hope that I did. I hope that you learned something that you can use along the way in your travels. Also, I don't think I got a good picture of it, but I ended up nailing the shim to the thing, gluing it and nailing it. And when it come time to finishing it, ideally you would pull out those nails and fill them, and it was like you're kind of never there. So that's what's still going to happen. But for the purposes of the video and YouTube and instruction, this is it. This is all you get. But later I will talk about exterior wood finishes, and we will talk about wood fillers, and we'll talk about paints and primers, and we'll get all that out there. But for now, I'd like to say that the project was a success, although not a perfect finish. A few little hiccups, but you'll always encounter that. Another job done mostly right.